What does it really mean when people say Mike Tyson was unbeatable? Not undefeated, not feared, unbeatable. Because no one argues about what Tyson did. They argue about when he existed, about whether the version people remember was ever truly available long enough to be challenged.
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
I'm Mike Tyson.
Or Mike Tyson.
Listen, Ali, what do you think of Mike Tyson?
Awesome. He's powerful, he's strong, he's got a big punch. If he hits you, you're in trouble.
Right. How would you have fared against him? Would you have whopped him?
Stick, move, hit and run.
Yes.
Tire him out.
Right.
After about round 10, move in.
Could Tyson have survived and even thrived in that earlier era?
I ain't knocking Mike Tyson. No. Joe Frazier would beat him up in his own style. Joe liked guys like that. Ali, slap him all day long with the jab. Kenny Norton, too strong.
George Foreman?
2 seconds. You can't stay there with George Foreman and take no punches. George will tear your head off. It's like the kitchen sink he's hitting you with.
For a brief moment, the heavyweight division stopped feeling competitive. Not because Tyson was bigger, not because he hit harder, but because he arrived already inside his opponent's space, already ahead of their reactions, already punishing mistakes that had not fully formed.
Were you dealing with an injury going into the fight?
Yeah, but I can't use that for an excuse because if I did, I wouldn't be in there.
Is this possibly the last time for you?
I don't think so. Maybe his brother.
You want to fight Logan? Logan, I think he said you might be next.
I'll kill you, Mike.
Declaring your winner by unanimous decision, Jake Paul!
Well, it happened. Jake Paul beat Mike Tyson.
After I beat Mike Tyson, the amount of people saying this is rigged was crazy. They showed this clip of Mike Tyson going to swing at me with a left hook, and he stopped doing it, but saw I had my right hand up. So he would have swung like this, I catch it and shoot. He's leaning forward I could have knocked him out. So that's why he stopped throwing it. And it's they play this one clip and it has literally 50 million views on TikTok, but the average person doesn't understand boxing.
That version of Mike Tyson did not fight like a man chasing victory. He moved like a system enforcing order. And that is why his legacy never settles.
Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. What's your take on Jake? Tyson's 58 years old. Jake fought a guy who was his age and who was also considered a boxer, and he lost.
He says he wants to fight Canelo.
I mean, it'd be a fucking 30-second payday for Canelo. Everybody's going to tune in to hope that Mike Tyson knocks him out. They're not tuning in because they think Jake Paul's a great fighter and they want to see him compete.
Some say he was a force of nature who burned too fast. Others say he was protected by timing, by circumstance, by opponents who never met him at his most complete. So the question is not who beat Mike Tyson. The question is simpler and far more uncomfortable. Did anyone ever truly face the Mike Tyson people still argue about today? When Mike Tyson's name comes up, the conversation rarely stays calm for long. People do not respond with statistics. They respond with certainty or with hesitation. Some speak as if the answer is obvious. Others slow down, choosing their words carefully, knowing that whatever they say will be challenged immediately.
We can't get through this without talking about Mike Tyson, or at least bringing up his name.
Who?
You know. The guy with whom you had your last fight. In your prime, could you have beaten him?
Everybody in this room here would have been able to beat Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was born right.
Really?
Yeah. You'd have never heard of him.
Joe's sitting over there nodding his head like I ain't sure about that.
Yeah, everybody.
For many, he represents domination in its rawest form. A fighter who ended contests before they could take shape. Opponents did not lose rounds, they lost control. Distance collapsed. Size stopped mattering. Experience offered no protection. For a brief time, the heavyweight division looked powerless in front of him.
This is Mike Tyson when he was just at his fucking most destructive best. Tyson just destroyed Marvis Frazier in the most violent fight I had ever seen in a boxing match. And I thought to myself back then, I was like, if there's one person that would be the most terrifying person to be encountered with, it would be Mike Tyson, that's ever lived. Because in my opinion, this was the scariest I've ever seen a human being be in my life. Tyson just stepped to him and just started fucking blasting him. Got him in this corner right here, and this is the end right here. Wow, bang! Bang, 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 bang. That's all before he can fall down. He's already unconscious. Tyson hits him 4 times more before he even gets to the ground. It was like an assassination.
For others, that same stretch raises uncomfortable questions. They see a champion who burned through a field that never fully pushed back. A fighter whose prime arrived in a moment when the division lacked enough equal forces to truly test him at his most complete. Not a fraud, but an unanswered hypothesis. And that is where the divide becomes permanent.
So Don King shows up at your house and he says, I want you to fight Mike Tyson.
But my first impression was, shit, you got to be crazy. Me? Fight Mike Tyson? He said, yeah, you can fight Mike Tyson. You can beat Mike Tyson. I said, I know I can get around all this stuff that you don't, but I can't beat Mike Tyson because there's a lot of things he don't do.
Supporters argue that dominance does not require permission, that you can only defeat the men placed in front of you. And Tyson did so with a violence and certainty few have ever matched. Critics argue that greatness is proven through collision, that legends are shaped when 2 complete forces meet, and neither gives way easily. Both sides talk past each other because they are not discussing the same Tyson. They are arguing over a version, a narrow window of time when everything aligned. A version so overwhelming that it feels unfair to judge it by the standards of a full career. That is why his name still splits the room. Not because the truth is unclear, but because that version of Mike Tyson never stayed long enough to settle it. Prime Mike Tyson was never about chaos. That is the part most people misunderstand. The knockouts made him famous, but they were not what made him dangerous. Violence was the result, not the method. What separated Tyson from other punchers was control. Control of distance, control of balance, control of rhythm, control of himself.
What's interesting is that like your style was so effective, but there's not a heavyweight out there that fights like you, which is interesting
because that's a complicated style when you really think about it, because it's more like karate. Boxing, you're loose, and karate, you're just boom, move. That's that's like karate. Karate.
But your style was so terrifying because instead of like a Larry Holmes style where you're behind a strong jab, there was so many consequences. That was the thing about your fights. It's like every mistake that anybody made had grave consequences.
Listen, the whole thing, you have to take risks too. In order for fights to be exciting, people have to take risks. Fighting is about taking risks.
Exactly.
Risking losing, getting hit.
I call him Mike Nightmare Tyson. That guy was a nightmare in the ring. I mean, really, if he missed you with his left, then missed you with his right, he'd bite you. I didn't want to have anything to do with that guy.
You didn't want him?
No, I didn't want him.
Do you think he wanted you?
No way. We were both. One was scared, and the other was glad of that.
At his peak, Tyson did not chase opponents. He removed their options. He closed space without rushing. He slipped jabs before they finished extending. He moved his head not to avoid punches, but to invite them. Each movement pulled a reaction. Each reaction created an opening. And once that opening appeared, the punishment arrived instantly. This version of Tyson did not rely on a single shot. He arrived already balanced, already set to throw again if the first missed. When his left hook missed, his feet were still under him. When he lunged forward, his weight stayed centered. He did not fall into exchanges. He stepped into them with intent.
He was smaller than me, and he spoke with a bit of a lisp. And I told him to batter you. I really believed in my head. Then we went to the minibus to go to the gym, and suddenly all these big, powerful men appeared. And they were walking very, very somber. They were walking like men walking to the gallows. But they knew what was coming. Got to the gym, shadowboxed, bandaged up. Cus said, right, glove up for sparring. I'm looking around. These big men were scared stiff. But I was so relaxed. Next when I look into the ring, and Mike's pacing the ring with his shirt off. His body, his physique was incredible. His biceps, his chest, incredible. I hadn't seen him stripped to the waist. Yeah. And I'm looking, I'm thinking, that's not the same 17-year-old boy I met yesterday. That's not the same 17-year-old boy I ran with this morning. That's not the same 17-year-old boy I sat next to on the minibus getting here. Yeah. Then Cus pointed to one of the big men to get in. He was knocked spark out.
One of the smallest details made the biggest difference. His bounce. On the balls of his feet, Tyson adjusted constantly. He shifted his stance mid-advance, planting himself into better positions to punch. That subtle movement allowed him to strike without resetting. It allowed him to miss without consequence. It allowed him to remain dangerous even when nothing landed clean. And just as important as what he did was what he did not do. He did not fixate on one punch. He did not force openings that were not there. His mind stayed flexible. He read posture. He read hesitation. He read fear. And when a weakness surfaced, even for a moment, he acted without delay. This is why his prime cannot be measured by strength or age. It was a system functioning perfectly. A fighter executing instructions drilled so deeply that they became instinct. Every movement served a purpose. Every step shortened the night.
What do you say to those people of Scotland who turned out here tonight and they obviously wanted to see more of Mike Tyson?
They know my pedigree. They're my fans. They know what I do.
What about Lennox Lewis now? Is that the next fight, do you think, if it can be made?
Well, listen, right? I'm going to keep it real. I'm not ready for him right now. But when the time comes, I invincibility him. He's no match for me when I'm right. There's no one that can ever match me when I'm right.
Why aren't you ready for him now then, Mike?
I need more training. I haven't had time. I've been off. I had 12 fights in 10 years. Of course he wants me now. I'm rusty. I want him when I'm right, so I can go in him and rip out his heart and feed it to him.
Tyson was not most dangerous when he was angry. He was most dangerous when he was calm. Because when Mike Tyson was fully controlled, fully disciplined, and fully present, he was not improvising violence. Prime Mike Tyson did not exist in the world most people saw. He existed inside a cage. At the center of that cage stood Cus D'Amato.
Who was your toughest opponent?
Besides myself, I thought it was Penguin Thomas. He's my toughest opponent. I never thought him. Before, you would have asked me 5 years ago, 2 years ago, nothing. But then I watched the tape from a friend of mine who told me to watch this. And I hit him with 17 punches, flat, on the face. And he went down, but it was 17 punches.
Cus was not just a trainer. He was an authority figure Tyson surrendered himself to. Discipline replaced choice. Routine replaced instinct. Fear was not eliminated. It was redirected. Tyson did not train to express himself. He trained to satisfy a standard that could never fully be met.
There's nothing playful about him.
And you liked that?
Hey, you know what? I loved it. Someone cared about me. Yeah. And if anybody says something to me, I punch him in the face, attack him. He'll attack you physically.
Were you ever afraid?
I was always afraid of him. I'm afraid of him now, like that. He made sure you were afraid of him.
But I mean, you were like twice as big as him.
No, that don't mean nothing. He had the system of intimidation down like a science.
Really?
He had it down to a science.
He learned obedience to structure. He learned to trust repetition over emotion. The peekaboo style was not just a stance. It was a mental framework. Head movement, foot placement, balance, all drilled until they required no conscious thought. When pressure arrived, the system responded automatically.
There you go, beautiful.
Tyson hasn't fought in more than 18 months, but the old Mike, the one schooled by Cus D'Amato and Kevin Rooney to hit without getting hit, has been missing for more than a decade.
His style is head movement. Be elusive. He's not doing the style the way it's supposed to be. He's just a puncher now. If he hits you, he'll knock you out. If you hit him, you allow him to knock him out.
Kevin Rooney reinforced that structure. The work was methodical, unromantic, endless. Tyson absorbed it because he wanted approval, not applause.
It's the state of mind that Cus put me in. Why are you jumping around? He never, like, if you watched any of my earlier fights, you never saw me, when Cus was alive that was, you never saw me jumping around and celebrate. Because Cus, I would come home and Cus would watch the fight with me, we'd go over the fight, and he said, after he'd go over my mistakes, he said, why are you doing that? Why are you jumping around? Do you think you've been practicing this every day for 6 weeks? And why are you jumping? You've been doing this every day, you've been getting the same results every day in the gym. Now you get in the ring, you jump around, act like it was an accident. And so I expect the people to be knocked out, so that's why I never really celebrated. Only as of late I did out of arrogance, but when I was first training, I expect people to be knocked out.
And when Cus died, the door quietly opened. Nothing collapsed immediately. The techniques were still there. The power remained. The reputation only grew. But the voice that enforced discipline was gone. The one figure Tyson feared disappointing no longer existed. What disappeared first was not his skill. It was his anchor. Prime Tyson was not sustained by talent alone. It was sustained by a system that controlled his mind as tightly as his movements. Once that system weakened, the version people remember began to fade. Not all at once, but inevitably. The decline of Mike Tyson did not begin with a loss. It began with details. On tape, the first thing to disappear was his bounce. The subtle rhythm on the balls of his feet faded, and with it, his unpredictability. He still moved forward, but now the movement was straighter, easier to read. Opponents no longer felt hunted, they felt approached.
He said, I promised my mama before she died I was gonna beat her. Just a couple nights before the fight, Douglas' mom died. This dude's mom had told everybody that her son was gonna beat Mike Tyson. She bragged, Mike Tyson is undefeated.
Tyson had once slipped punches before they fully arrived. Now he started walking into range upright, absorbing jabs he used to erase. The distance that once collapsed under his control became something he crossed without disguise.
In 1990, you lost to Buster Douglas. Why did you lose that fight?
Because Buster kicked my butt. That's all I could say. The guy prepared for the fight. He fought the fight of his life. But this is where we talk about character and determination. I handled my loss. I came back. I won the title 2 more times. You know, that doesn't mean I'm greater than him. That means I didn't give up. I didn't give up where some agree where he gave up. I wasn't going to do that. And I realized he had one great night. That was a great night. I'm not taking anything away from him. I wish I won that night, but that turned out to be a good night for me because after that night, I became human. So there's a possibility I can get beat so now I can make more money.
His punches changed too. At his peak, a missed punch was simply a transition. His feet adjusted, his angle shifted, and another shot followed immediately. Later, after a miss, he often stayed planted. He threw the same punch again, even when the target had already moved. The combinations shortened. The flow broke. Instead of building openings, Tyson began searching for one decisive moment. One punch thinking replaced layered pressure. Power was still there, but the structure that delivered it had loosened. Without the system, violence became more visible and therefore more manageable.
I agree. Yeah, well, especially a guy like you who's, you know, you've been checked. Your ego's been checked. Your life has been checked. You've had so many down moments as well as up moments. You've had the full ride of experiences.
Never thought I'd survive with my ego being checked. And no idea that wasn't what it was about.
So you thought if your ego checked, you would go away.
I'd be nothing without my ego.
Wow.
Cus was gone. Then Jim Jacobs, the protector who shielded Tyson from those who saw him as a commodity, was gone too. Into that space stepped new voices, louder voices, agreeable voices, voices that did not correct, only encourage.
And so I actually watched quite a few fights like that.
I watched Tyson Spinks like that.
Oh, wow.
How good a use of money was that?
Wow. Yeah.
91 seconds.
Whatever it was. But watching that live, I was like, I feel like he's like not trying to hurt him. It was weird. It was like the punches didn't seem the same. It almost seemed like he was like taking something off the punches.
The night he destroyed Michael Spinks in 91 seconds felt like the peak of everything he had been built to do. But it was also the final confirmation of that version. The discipline was still there that night. The focus remained intact. The machine functioned one last time. Nothing shattered in a single moment. The changes were small, but they accumulated. Each fight locked the flaws in a little deeper. Each camp without correction made return more difficult. Tyson did not suddenly become worse. He became less protected from his own instincts. And without the structure that once contained him, the version people argue about began slipping away, frame by frame, long before the world noticed the fall. Buster Douglas did not defeat the best version of Mike Tyson. He exposed the absence of it. By the time Tyson stepped into that ring, the system that once guided him was already gone. What remained was power, reputation, and instinct. Enough to intimidate, enough to sell inevitability, but no longer enough to control a fight that refused to end quickly.
Round 10 was coming out doing some of the, leading with the jab and setting him up. And then I heard my uncle JD called and said, pivot to the right. And when I popped him with a jab, then I pivoted to the right, and he stood right in the same position that he was in. It was a perfect shot for the uppercut. And then when I caught him with the uppercut and came across to the left, and then, came with the right and stuck him with that jab just before he went down. But even then, I thought he was going to get up. But once I seen him looking around for that mouthpiece, I knew he was hurt because, you were trained to, get up, pick that count up and get up first. When I seen him look for that mouthpiece, I knew then that it was over. He was hurt bad.
That night, Tyson moved forward without disguise. He stood on the center line. He threw single punches. He waited for force to solve what discipline once handled automatically. When pressure came back at him, there was no adjustment, no second layer, just persistence without direction.
You know the story of Buster Douglas? It's an amazing story. His mom died. For Tyson, he had just been smashing everybody for so long. He was so good and so scary. He would win fights before they would even start. It would just be a matter of whether or not you were going to make it out of the first round sometimes. He was just smashing people. But for Buster Douglas, it's like he had some good fights and some bad fights, and he wasn't completely consistent, but he was talented. But then when his mom died, it was right when the time when Tyson was, just overconfident. He was a 46-1 underdog, I think.
After the loss, something important happened. Tyson did not return to his old self. He returned to winning. And those two things are not the same. Victories followed, but the flaws hardened. Without a disciplinarian to confront them, mistakes became habits. The jab stopped opening doors. Angles disappeared. Head movement became optional. The machine no longer corrected itself under stress. When Tyson returned, the division saw a familiar outline but a different interior. The explosive force was still there, but the rhythm was gone. He relied on timing rather than creation, on intimidation rather than positioning. Fighters who survived the early storm could now read him, prepare for him, wait him out.
Incredible work ethic.
Mike worked very hard. He's the only person I can ever say trained harder than me. When I worked in the gym with him, and I'd seen all the things that he would do, and I was just amazed. And I'm like, God, shoot. 17 years old, he's just a kid, man. I didn't think nobody gonna beat him.
Holyfield did not beat Tyson with tricks. He beat him by refusing to panic, by standing where Tyson once thrived, and forcing him to operate without structure. Lennox Lewis went even further, turning the fight into a demonstration of distance, patience, and inevitability. By then, the aura still filled arenas, but the machine was no longer inside it. This is why the argument around Tyson never ends. Supporters say his losses came after his prime vanished. Critics say a true great should not require perfect conditions to remain great. Both are right, and neither can prove their case fully. Because the version everyone argues about did not lose in a ring. It dissolved in pieces. Prime Mike Tyson was not beaten by a better man. He simply stopped existing. And what followed was a fighter still powerful enough to frighten the world, but no longer complete enough to answer the question he left behind. Mike Tyson does not remain in boxing history because of titles or records. He remains because of a feeling, a memory of what it looked like when distance collapsed instantly, when heavyweights hesitated not out of fear, but out of uncertainty, when a fight felt shorter than the walk to the ring. Prime Tyson existed inside a narrow window, not defined by age, but by discipline, not sustained by power, but by structure. When that structure faded, the version people still argue about faded with it. In the end, Mike Tyson stands as one of boxing's great unanswered questions, not because he failed, but because, for a brief moment, he showed something so overwhelming that the sport never fully caught up to it. And once it was gone, all that remained was the argument.